And welcome back to another episode of the Choose954 podcast, episode 93, with Broward's very own Timothy Mark Davis of New City Players. If you didn't know about Choose954, myself, Evan Snow, and my business partner, Mr. Andrew Martineau, as arts advocates, community builders, and placemakers, started an initiative a few years ago to cultivate culture and community here in our native Broward County in an effort to cultivate culture and community, keep people to know with all the great things that are going on, and make this a better place to live, and not just a better place for vacation because we live here and we're both from here. The point of the podcast is to connect you with people in the community like him that do important things, and he's got quite a lot going on. We're excited to share with you. So without much further ado, why don't you give us a little bit of a high-level intro as to who you are, what you do, and kind of how you got started in the arts.
Yeah, for sure. High-level intro is I am a theater and film producer, director, actor, sometimes screenwriter. And I got started in the arts when I was in 8th grade. My dad told me it was a Christmas show, and he said, listen, if you try out for that Christmas show and you get a solo in it, it was like a Christmas musical, I'll pay you $100. And I was very shy at the time. And I was playing in the band, and I was playing sports, and they wanted me to be well-rounded. So my parents wanted, and I had an egregious personality, so they wanted me to try out the stage. And so I auditioned. I got a few solo lines in the Christmas show, got that $100, and then I wasn't paid again for acting for about 15, 20 years. So it was a nice check as an 8th grader. And then that spring, I tried out for the school musical. I got the lead in the school musical, and just have kind of been refusing to grow up ever since.
That's a good way to put it. Where did you grow up?
I grew up here, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, North Fort Lauderdale, Pompano Beach.
Okay.
I moved to Pompano Beach in high school, and live right off Commercial right now. I've pretty much been here my whole life.
Okay, and did you study art and theater and film in school?
Yeah, so my undergrad was a humanities degree, and then I minored in theater. I did theater all through college, and then I did my master's in theater, did a Master of Arts in Theater Studies. So that was sort of the education, but a lot of it has come from doing, especially on the filmmaking side. That has come from trying and failing and collaborating. And on the theater side, it's come from starting New City Players with a group of friends and trying to figure out how to be a fundraiser and a marketer and an artistic director and still an actor and director. So wearing a lot of hats in order to make it happen.
So, and first and foremost, for those that are not familiar with New City Players, why don't you give us a little bit of a high-level overview?
Yeah, New City Players is a nonprofit theater company here based in Broward County. We currently perform in Wilton Manors at Island City Stage, which is where we are right now. And our mission is to create community through transformative theater. So it's really built on this idea that people gathering in a space is unique, and it's very human, and it's something that is often lacking. And as we are increasingly addicted to our phones and our couches and our computers, and life is mediated through technology, which in a lot of ways, that's amazing. It's streamlined. It's made the world a better place.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we are still storytelling creatures who want to sit around a campfire and talk about the day's exploits. And the theater, I think, is one of the most visceral and moving places that can happen. And that's what our mission is about: bringing people together, starting conversations, continuing conversations, reflecting back to the community, their stories, their identities, and then also exposing the community to new stories that maybe they haven't experienced before.
Amen. And you've done a great job of that. Maybe for those that are still not familiar, what are some of the productions or programs that you guys have done kind of up until this point?
Yeah, we started in 2016 was our first official season. That year we did The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, which is the same playwright as A Streetcar Named Desire, which we're in production for right now. Yep, so I directed that show. That was actually my master's thesis. So we're revisiting that playwright all these years later, but we've done plays like A Raisin in the Sun. We've done original world premieres. This past year we did 2 world premieres: 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Garcia, who's a Miami playwright, and then a Christmas Carol adaptation by one of our company members, who's a Broward boy as well. I could list other plays. I don't know that people would know them, but usually we do things that are Pulitzer Prize winning or have been on Broadway or off Broadway, and then we do new work as well, and we try to invest in the local community, the writers that are here, and produce their work.
Okay, and you do a great job of that. And you briefly mentioned, but what do you guys currently have going on at the moment right now?
Yeah, so at the moment we're doing what has become our biggest show ever, both in terms of the scale of production and then ticket sales. We're starting our second week of A Streetcar Named Desire, which is a Pulitzer Prize winning play by Tennessee Williams. We run that for 4 weeks, and 80% of all tickets are already sold. It's surpassed our top selling show of all time. People love the play. We just got some reviews in. The reviews are raving. People are responding to it. So it's a really cool moment for us to be doing such a massive play in a small space. The farthest seat is 15 yards away.
Literally.
So it's like this is an intimate space where you can see an actor tapping their foot or shaking their finger or raising their eyebrow. It is a special experience in this venue.
And for those who are not familiar, it is very intimate. How many seats? What other things take place here at Island City Stage, and what else in the area could they enjoy? Restaurants and
yeah, absolutely. This is a 69-seat theater. There are 6 rows. Island City Stage is another wonderful theater company, another nonprofit theater company that this is their home space. So we come in as their guests, and we have a great relationship with them. They focus on LGBTQ theater for the most part, and they produce 5 shows a season. They just did an amazing emerging directors program as well, where they're training up the next generation of directors. Right next door is Plays of Wilton, which is Ronnie Larson is the artistic director there. And they similarly do LGBTQ focused work. They have a brand new musical running right now that is selling out. And then across the street is really one of my favorite restaurants in Broward County. It's called Union Kitchen and Bar. The owner there, Roberto Colombi, is an amazing supporter of all the companies that work here. Their menu is outstanding. It changes every several months. They have great appetizers, great entrees. If you want to get a cocktail, they do this smoked bourbon cocktail where they actually put it inside of a case and they smoke it, like literally smoke it. I don't know what is happening scientifically, but it is very cool what they do, and it is delicious. So we kind of have our own little theater arts district right here. There's always a show going on and a great restaurant across the street.
And Island City Stage has been very active over the years, and multiple noteworthy shows. And thankfully, the Wilton Manors community and the LGBT community throughout Broward County as a whole has been very active in supporting the arts,
Absolutely,
which we're grateful for. And I'm glad that you mentioned, because we like to highlight not just the arts, but local small businesses, restaurants, coffee shops. So I will investigate that smoked bourbon cocktail.
Oh, it's so good, man.
If they come to your show, I understand there's a special cocktail theme based off the show.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to our mission of creating community. We're always looking for ways to take what happens on stage and extend the experience beyond that. So for this show, every Friday, if you come to a Friday show, we're having Jazzy Fridays. So we've got some young musicians from Broward College who are coming. They're going to be right on the stage playing live jazz for 45 minutes to an hour after every Friday show, and we'll serve up some wine. So you can have a glass of wine, enjoy some live jazz. Every Saturday is Saturday Spirits. So we've got 4 character-themed cocktails that have been crafted by local mixologist, who's he's been a bartender all around town. His name's Eric O'Keefe. He specially crafted these 4 different, well, one of them is just a shot. That's Stanley's shot. So that's just some Woodford Reserve for you bourbon lovers out there. But the other 3 are specialty crafted cocktails. They're all delicious. And that just is included with your ticket purchase. So you come on a Saturday, you get a free cocktail after the show. The cast sticks around. The creative team sticks around. And it's this time to talk about the show, talk about the ideas of the show, congratulate, celebrate, and enjoy more than just what's happening on stage, but go beyond the stage.
Amazing. And so you mentioned going beyond the stage. You mentioned community. I'm not going to ask you to address the community at large, because we're in a large community, but specifically within film and the performing arts. So organizations like New City Players and Island City Stage, what is the importance of production companies like yours to the community, specifically within the theater and film space, from your perspective, now that you've been in it for quite a few years?
Yeah, so I wear two hats, right? I run the business that is a nonprofit, but then I also help produce the art of the nonprofit.
Right.
So on the artistic hat, which is where I will start because that is where my heart truly is, I think it's a question of identity. You know, who are we and who do we want to be as a culture, as a community? And we'll call that Broward, maybe we'll call it Fort Lauderdale or the greater Fort Lauderdale area. And there is no thriving city on earth that does not have a thriving arts and culture scene.
Fact.
So that's the number one thing. And that's me starting to put on my business hat a little bit, but I'm going to keep that at bay. It goes back to what I said about we are storytelling beings.
Yep.
So seeing human expression, seeing human emotion, seeing other people's experience made live in front of us, whether that's through dance or music or visual art, that is what makes life worth living. It's what makes life something that you can get through. You know, Ethan Hawke has this amazing clip that gets shared. It goes on social media. It feels like every 3 weeks it kind of resurfaces. But, you know, he says most people don't care about poetry, right? They don't think about poetry. And then their mom dies and they come across a poem and it speaks so clearly and perfectly to their experience. And all of a sudden this poem becomes a lifeline for them.
Yep.
And I know for me, I love music, right? Everybody loves music. But I'm kind of a podcast guy. So like when I'm at the gym, when I'm driving, I'm usually listening to podcasts, except when my life is unraveling or something is going bonkers. Then I'm listening to music.
Right.
I'm looking for that thing that can emotionally sustain me and feed me. I go to art for that.
Right.
You know, I go to the theater for that. I watch the movies for that. So I think there is this cultural artistic side that being human is about, you know, expressing yourself is a huge piece of that. Then we have the business side, which is what I said before, there's really no thriving city on earth that doesn't have thriving arts and culture. And we just did a huge economic study. I'm sure you know about it. It's a 9-to-1 return on investment. So every dollar that's put into the arts, 9 times that affects the greater economy.
Yep.
So it's not just this fluffy, gooey, you know, I'm sad and I read a poem or I look at a piece of art and I go see a play. But some people, they don't do that regardless, right?
Correct.
They just 9 to 5 it and maybe they watch some reality TV or they watch some Netflix. They don't care about the theater.
Which is art and film.
It is art. It is art and film. Yeah, I don't want to sound
yes.
I don't want to sound elitist by any means. But I also know people who like actually watch nothing. Like it's like sports radio and which, you know, the drama of sports is real.
Of course.
The drama of sports is real and it's fascinating and I enjoy it as well. But this seeing it as a true economic driver and recognizing that, you know, we have the data on that now. We have the studies. When people go to something, when they leave their home, they're buying dinner, they're buying gas, they are buying a ticket to something that is paying multiple people and supporting multiple jobs.
Correct.
They are hiring a babysitter.
Correct.
if they have kids. There's so many things that trickle out from someone choosing to engage culturally. If there's nowhere to go, if there's nothing to see, if it's not a community and a culture that values and prizes gathering and experiencing, it's not going to ultimately flourish economically, psychologically, socially, educationally. You know, go down the list. All of those things suffer when we don't invest in our arts and culture.
Very well put. And a lot of people don't think about the bigger impact of the creative economy that 9-to-1 return. In addition to the intrinsic trickle-down benefits that you mentioned, the graphic designer that creates the flyer, the usher, the valet person at the car, you know, and you mentioned
the cleaning company that I know Marty hires to come here to clean this theater.
Because if there wasn't a production, you wouldn't need the cleaning company.
Exactly.
And so those dollars, I mean, it arguably stretches further than the 9-to-1. That AEP 6 report, Americans' Economic Prosperity, that actually only tracks non-profit spending in the arts and doesn't even attribute galleries and other for-profit businesses and studio space rentals and so on and so forth. So I really appreciate you kind of highlighting that. I always like to pick on, and this is more on the visual arts side, but the example still reigns true. Like, nobody wants to live in a place, and I always say Youngstown, Ohio, where it's like gray and dark and desolate, and there's nothing to see, nothing to do. And ultimately, to your point, those economies suffer.
Yep.
People leave,
Yep.
and you need things to not only attract all of these talented, skilled workers that work in the economy, but all these people that want to live here. We need stuff to retain them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you and I, both being from here and still living here, we've seen so many people come and we've seen so many people go.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why we've done a panel discussion annually on art, culture, and the creative economy in ways that people can get involved and can support. Because not everybody, right, they don't think about those trickle-down effects, and they don't think about all of the lives impacted, in addition to the attendees whose lives are enriched by this culturally enriching experience that's thought-provoking, that's creating new neural pathways, that's expanding your mind. So with that being said, what are some ways, including attending shows, but not just attending shows, that, let's say there is a patron or a donor or a philanthropist that did want to support an organization like New City Players, what are some ways that they could support?
Yeah, you just
put in that business hat back on.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to say one more thing to what you just said,
Please.
if I could, because this is always a fascinating conversation to me. But a good friend of mine, Matt Stabile, is the artistic director of Theater Lab at FAU, which is up in Palm Beach. And he has this phrase that has always stuck with me. He says, in South Florida, we export talent and import work. And my experience of that, I grew up in high school thespians. The Florida State Thespian Festival, 7,000 students go to that every year. It's the largest state thespian festival in the entire world. You know how many of those kids end up moving away after high school, and then some stay for college, and then they move away after college? And it's a foregone conclusion that if you want to succeed as an actor or as a theater maker or as a filmmaker, you need to move to Atlanta, to New York, to LA. And the thing that I will say is I added Atlanta to that list. That wasn't the case 20 years ago.
5 years, 6 years ago.
That's a community that decided, here's something we're going to invest in, and we're going to change the makeup of this economy and the makeup of this culture. It's happening in New Orleans right now. New Orleans has seen a boom of filmmaking. So how do these, if you want to create a hub of creativity and see this overflow of culture and then see the economic benefit of that, you've got to start investing in those things on the front end, because we continue to export talent. Some of the most talented people ever go to high school down here and then they leave. They don't stay.
Frederick Blake Sudwell, Incredible Media, shot the first recap video for Art Fort Lauderdale's opening reception in the fair. Lived at Sailboat Ben Artist Loft, very talented filmmaker, one of the most talented videographers I've ever met. Moved to Atlanta. He is now producing Netflix shows. He has, I believe, his own soundstage. He is absolutely crushing it. And it's really unfortunate that those opportunities weren't able to be here. I'm going to come back to the ways people can support New City Players question again. But with that being the case, what would you like to see specifically within your sphere, within film and the performing arts locally? Like, what are things that we need? Do we need more sound stages? Do we need more programs, to train the next generation? Do we need more incentives? Like, what from your travels, from your experience, from everywhere you've been and seen, what could we stand to benefit from?
I remember talking to Joe Adler 6 or 7 years ago. He is the sort of, in the theater world, the godfather, one of the godfathers of South Florida theater. He was the artistic director of Gable Stage and for 20 years. He passed a few years ago. But he came and saw our Raisin in the Sun in 2019. And I talked to him in the lobby. And Joe was like a very straight shooter, kind of old school guy. And he just kind of said to me, is the county giving you any money? I'm like, yeah, they're giving us, X amount of money. It's fucking ridiculous. They should be giving you $100,000. They should be giving you 10 times what they're giving you. Because that's what he was getting in Miami.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would say, I think one of the best things our community has done is hire Phil Dunlap as our cultural division director. I think he does a great job. I think he does a great job connecting and talking to the artistic leaders. So I really appreciate his leadership. I appreciate his transparency around this fact as well. We just had our grantee reception a few weeks ago,
Right.
and the commissioners came and they talk, and everyone pats each other on the back. Congrats to the artists. Oh, we raised the money we went from $3 million to $5 million in the last, and then but Miami is still 5 times that, and Palm Beach is still, however much more it is. We're still the smallest budgeted county by far in South Florida. So on a nonprofit level, on the county level, and then on the state level, that's another discussion. We need more investment. We need more investment, because how much more can we just go to donors and say, can I have more this time? Can I have more this time? Can I have more this time? The cost of everything's going up. People won't work for that wage anymore.
Correct.
The pandemic changed things.
Correct.
You can't get lumber for that price anymore.
Correct.
Everything has gone up. Do I just keep begging donors? Donors who are older and retired, and do I raise the ticket price, making it even more of a thing that is for a certain demographic, and other people aren't welcome at? It just creates so many issues. And again, it goes back to, if we believe that art is important, it's got to be funded by our government. It just does. The expense to produce these things at such a level it's too high for it to make sense economically, unless I'm charging $300 a ticket and people are actually coming to that, which they're not going
Correct.
to in a culture of celebrity. Not even Broadway can survive unless
Correct.
they've got a famous person in a play. So
Yeah,
I'm ranting and raving.
no,
now,
yeah,
but
there's no so the incentives and funding.
Yes.
Yet there's no shortage of wealthy folks in Broward County and in
Mhm.
South Florida that are
absolutely
and
sustaining all of us.
who many of our new residents are coming from New York, LA, Chicago, and well-cultured places. And one of the most frustrating things that I've experienced with people that I've been introduced to or connected to that recently moved here is they come. When they came to visit, it seemed great.
Right.
But then when they came to live, oh, what do you mean we don't have any Michelin star restaurants? We do have the Broward Center for Performing Arts, which is arguably one of the top
Incredible.
performing arts centers in the country. And they do, I went and saw Hamilton there,
Mhm.
So on and so forth. But
That's not South Florida, though.
and
They're importing work. Goes back to that. We've got people coming to the Broward Center in Hamilton who went to high school here.
crazy. Or even the Black Violin,
Yeah.
Dillard High School.
Yep.
Billboard, top of the Billboard charts.
Yep.
But understandably, they have to,
Of course.
tour.
Yeah. Every artist should, if they have an opportunity to advance their career, they should do that. But if they're not incentivized to stay and cultivate something here, why wouldn't they leave?
The incentives and the need for more philanthropy and patronage and support of the arts is important. And I admittedly do not know, so I'm just going to speak from my experience specifically within the visual arts. But talk about sustaining. There's no guarantee that the current major private funders, individuals, foundations, family offices, that their kids are going to continue supporting and
go away tomorrow.
And the one, everybody knows, if you go to any art building in Broward County, Francie Bishop Good and David Horvitz. Francie Bishop Good, a noteworthy artist, founder of the Girls Club, names on every single arts building in Broward County. I hope her kids are going to continue supporting, but there's no guarantee because while I have a ton of admiration and respect for Wayne Huizinga, who was one of the most successful business people of all time for Broward County and owned everything in the world at one point in time.
Yeah.
I've heard his kids are not very philanthropic and actually raised the rent on one of the most noteworthy artist studios, Nilda Comis, that was renting it for 17 years like they needed more money. So these are really conversations that really we should have publicly because you mentioned Broward County, unfortunately, lacking towards the bottom for funding. Now, unfortunately, due to a very ill-informed decision that our wonderful governor made, state of Florida is now literally at the bottom of arts funding.
Zero. As low as you can go.
And from what I understand now, and we can hop off this in a second, but it was a misunderstanding because apparently he didn't agree with the Fringe Festival.
See, I haven't heard any of this.
Yeah, he didn't.
I know we were inquiring for what the reason was, but I haven't been keeping up on it.
And we used to have a Fringe Festival, which I don't believe we still do.
No, we don't.
But it was a great show, but it is a little risque and it is a little on the edge. And I understand he has some values that might not align with those. And ultimately, that's what the news came out this week, that was the reason. And the Fringe Festival actually said, we'll give our funding back if you can give the funding back for the other arts organizations throughout the state.
Yeah.
Just wild. So incentives, I mean, the sound stages for sure, more training.
Yeah, the
more
filmmaker side. I think that is another area where, you know, Sandy Leiterman becoming the film commissioner, that's huge. That's a positive for us. She is a champion. She knows how to get stuff done. She's been very supportive of me as a local filmmaker.
Yep.
You know, partnering with those in her staff, and I'm always promoting what they're doing at different events that I've had, and they're promoting the work that I do in their newsletter. So they have this local faction as well. And I think that's what I really appreciate about Sandy is there's this, like, we want to cultivate our local filmmakers, but we also want to create an environment here where Hollywood is attracted, because this is a unique environment, right? We've got the beach, we've got downtown areas, we've got all these different communities and beaches that each have kind of different identities and different feels and looks to them. This could be a place where a lot more film and television is shot if it made sense financially, which it does not, because we don't have again, back to the state. It's a state issue with the state incentives. But I do think there is also a lack in Broward. Many of the filmmakers I know are Miami residents. We have just a lack in Broward, and maybe I don't know them yet. So if you're watching this and you're like, I'm a filmmaker in Broward, let's get coffee, let's connect and get to know each other. But there's so fewer that I know in Fort Lauderdale, in Broward County. Most of my friends and colleagues are Miami residents and born and raised in Miami.
And I'm sure you've heard this before as well, but even some of the ones that live in Broward call themselves Miami, which I understand.
That's casting networks. What is your location? I'm an actor, right? I do commercials, I do narrative stuff. I am a Miami actor on my casting profiles.
Just the way it is.
Yep.
Right.
That's the market that I'm in.
Correct.
The Miami market.
But thankfully, but to your point, thankfully, with the addition of Sandy and her staff and Film Lauderdale coming from the low point that we were previously in under the previous administration, thankfully, we are issuing more permits. There are more incentives. There are more incentives on the way.
They've got their whole menu.
Correct.
The menu, you know, if you go to Film Lauderdale and check out the menu, there are some great incentives there. But, you know, it still pales in comparison to some other communities and really attracting.
Correct.
You know.
I'm even thinking of now some of these amazing things I'm seeing out of Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete from their film commission. I will just say, though, and since I know you have a lot of filmmakers and people in the film industry in your network that might see this, we have a phenomenal, through the Film Lauderdale website, the film location database.
Yes.
So
that is great.
If you are looking to shoot something like, you know, you could rent this venue, you could rent. We have a studio space location at the Galleria Corporate Center across from the mall that has a former bank vault and a walk-in cooler from a restaurant that's both vacant, that people have done multiple horror movie shoots
that's so cool.
And commercials and stuff like that. So certainly encourage people to engage further. But I guess with that being the case, like, aside from the incentives, like, what would you like to see, or what are some of your thoughts for this current future landscape? Like, so you're at 80%. What can we sustain? What are we, not what are we lacking on the funding? What are we lacking on the programming? Like, I last year got into improv, and I found out about Second City.
Yep.
Right? We don't really have a Second City. We have people that are doing a couple things, but like, so what are some things I've heard from my friends at Bravo Theater? Like, we don't have that many like open calls, or like we don't have things that you find in New York and LA. So for the current, or really for the future landscape, what would you like to see that could make it a more sustainable? So a filmmaker, an actor, or even somebody that, you know, does production, that they could sustain their passion here in Broward County.
Yeah, so this is where it becomes, you know, we're all good at saying, well, that's what's wrong, and that's what's wrong, and that's what's wrong. But then all of a sudden, you turn it on me. Well, then how do you fix it?
You're doing a great job.
Well, and that's just me saying, you know, how do you, because it shouldn't just be, I'm making a piece of art, therefore people should show up for it. That's also not true.
Correct.
Right? It needs to be of a certain caliber and a certain quality. Correct. It needs to mean something and say something and actually be a beneficial experience. So I think that's a piece of it as well, is you're not just, sometimes you are making art for art's sake, and I think that's okay, but it's called show business, right? So making things that people actually want to see,
correct,
I think is really important. And that's where, as a cultural leader, as an artistic leader, as a creator, at some point, I think you making the thing that is like, this is what I want to make, and believing that it will resonate with others because it resonates with me. I think that is true sometimes, but I think sometimes it's not true. Sometimes maybe you make the thing that is just in your head, and no one cares. So I think that's a piece of it, is like being sensitive and understanding to where we actually live.
Correct.
We can't just pretend that we're New York City.
Right.
We're not.
Correct.
We can't pretend that we're Chicago. I think we can say we want more culture. We want to feel more like those places. We want to see that type of growth and bring some of that in. But we're South Florida. We have a different identity, and this goes back to that question. I'm not sure that I know what our identity is, because we have the beaches and we have sports teams and we have Fort Lauderdale and spring break, and that sort of like stigma that follows us everywhere we go. But then we also have amazing arts things as well. So finding how all of those things fit together in an ecosystem that serves every faction of the community, and not just in terms of taste, but also in terms of demographics, that serves men and women and non-binary people, that serves the Black community here, that serves the Hispanic and Latinx community here. We are a third.
Yep.
That is the other thing that makes our county unique.
Yep.
Whereas Miami and Palm Beach are not that way.
Correct.
So that's a superpower. We are the future of the world, really, in Broward County here. This mix of cultures and races coming together. So being able to create programming that speaks to those communities, not in a patronizing way, not in a tokenistic way or in a paternalistic way, but that involves those people in the creation of it, as the leaders of it, as the writers of it, as the actors of it, whatever medium you're working in. I think that's a piece of what we have to do as well. Acknowledge that we are in a diverse community. And yes, we have an ailing, whiter, wealthier population. But to your point, when all of those people are dead, because they will die, because that is the way of life, who is filling that gap? Are there children picking up the mantle and continuing the funding? Or are we going to be in a real tough spot because we've been catering to a certain demographic for decades and decades, and now we look around and we're like, well, that demographic doesn't even exist here anymore.
Correct.
Who are we making art for now?
Correct.
I think those are sort of the essential identity questions for the art makers that we have to be thinking about as we create as well.
That is very well put. And even furthermore, to take one step further, you can make great art, you can make a great film, you can make a great production, but if nobody knows about it. So we were having a conversation before about, are there critics that are writing about film and the production and performing arts and the work itself? And unfortunately, as anybody that's probably listening to this podcast knows, arts cuts across the board. Education, writing, publications have just unfortunately been the way that it is.
There's no more arts section in the paper. There's lifestyle. And sometimes you get an arts review in there.
Well,
or culture, I guess. I don't know what it's called.
I would motivate and maybe call out and inspire the next generation of a culture crusader, of an arts advocate, of a community builder, to this, I didn't know what that was 8-9 years ago when I just started exploring the arts, but the art had a profound impact on my life. And I felt the call because I felt that there was a gap and void that was missing, specifically here in Broward. When I was going to all the early stage Fat Village events and all the, all these things that were happening, I didn't see the people that I grew up with just 35 minutes away in Coral Springs. So that's part of the reason why I started Choose954 to show better than I could tell with the platform. So I think we probably do need more arts writers, more influencers within the arts, more content creators within the arts.
Not just artists, because that's the other challenge, is like, how can I both be making the work, which to do it at a high caliber creates, it takes an incredible amount of time, focus, and energy. How can I be doing that and also be championing it every single day or every week and doing both of those things well? I try. I do not do both of them well.
Correct.
It's just not possible.
Correct.
So yeah, where are the people who are becoming the leaders in government or the leaders of different nonprofits or becoming nonprofit board members who maybe they have their 9-to-5 thing, but their passion and hobby is arts on the side? I think that is a huge gap. I don't even know if people think that could be a thing, which that's what you've done, which is kind of amazing. But who else does what you all do?
I have contemporaries and peers in Miami, and in other markets that I've drawn inspiration from There's a woman, Diane Tapia, that has Art Scene 365, which has now become like a global platform. But she is based in Miami. She highlights Miami artists. She does highlight artists outside of Miami as well. But she's become like the go-to art guide from like a local, Venezuelan woman's perspective in Miami.
So cool.
And she does support Broward too. So, and God bless her. But yeah, there needs to be more. And even I don't, to be perfectly honest with you, I don't think people from our generation are thinking so much about joining boards like they or maybe I apologize. The next generation, I don't think they are, because we're involved in, and we've started nonprofits, and I would also encourage, and I'm not going to ask you to do more work because you already do so much, but like, if you have an idea for a play, for a film, for something, like reach out to one of us, both of us, because maybe we have a contact or resource that can connect some dots. So many people don't know about Artist Entrepreneur Program. So many people don't know about, we'd have, and I don't know if you know this yet, but one of the leading arts marketing and mindset coaches in the world, Sergio Gomez, Art Next Level, recently relocated from Chicago, where he was very successful, down here to Broward.
Wow.
And now he's making his platforms available with in-person workshops. We're partnering with him on a wellness retreat, a cruise for creatives, really helping about mindset blocks, also marketing and so many other things. So like really just, if you reach out and connect and be part of the community, then you can get the benefits and resources, not just from the culturally enriching experiences, but every time I've ever spoke with you, I've left more enlightened, right? And I've left like knowing more and wanting to do more, and even broadening my perspective, because admittedly, as I stated, I'm not as into the performing arts world as I am in the visual arts world or in the music world. So I really appreciate you, and I would encourage, if you're a young aspiring theater major, if you just went to a play when you were in middle school, like come, you'll have opportunities to connect, to ask questions, and you never know how that interaction could change the course of somebody's life, their community, or the world beyond.
And that's one thing that I have committed to, as I'm now kind of coming up on 10 years of trying to do this and live a creative life and wear all the hats and not grow up, however I want to put it. One thing that I've committed to is, if someone asks me for my time, someone earlier in their career, and they could be 30 years older than me, but maybe they're just starting in their artistic career. If they ask me for my time, I make time. I'll go to coffee, I'll hop on a Zoom, I'll hop on a phone call. When I've had my workshops, I've done a screenwriting workshop. I did a film screening last fall as well, and sort of like a multidisciplinary artist event. At those events, part of what I did was like, hey, there are grants available. You may not know this, but the Cultural Division has artist grants. Apply for them. That's how I did this event. I applied for and some people just don't know. So they sit at their home, this is speaking to the artists, they're sitting at home and they have a dream or they want to make something. They don't know that there are people who are willing to give advice or help them, or offer a lily pad to help them move forward, which is me. I'm one of those people. I don't know what I don't know, but I've been doing this now for 10 years and I'm still chipping away at it. So I'm happy to share that. But there are also ways in our community to find funding to make your project a reality. And so I'm here as a resource to share that with people, and happy to have coffee, share your idea with me. Let's make a movie, let's produce a play, whatever it may be. Let's do it.
And beautiful things have come from that. I mean, I've seen films that you've produced at Fort Lauderdale and other film festivals as well, where there was local talent, some of which I recognize, some of which I didn't recognize, but it all started with a conversation, an idea, let's do this. So you just mentioned ways that you, God bless you, are glad to altruistically help people. If somebody here is feeling philanthropic and they want to become a patron of New City Players, aside from just a straight cash donation, which is great and welcome by all means, click this button. What are some ways that they could support New City Players?
Besides money,
including money.
Yeah, that is, we're looking at our budget for next year, and I'm trying to think about fundraising. I'm always trying to develop how I think about fundraising, right? I'm trying to get better at fundraising, better at talking about money, because I am an artist at heart, right? So when money gets involved, sometimes it's like, ooh, I don't want to talk about it. I have had to learn and grow beyond that, and learn how to sit down, lunch with someone, and ask them to write the check, right? So thinking about our next season as we grow our budget, this will be our 9th season. It'll be our biggest budget we've ever had. We'll be paying the artists more than we've ever paid them. We're raising wages across the board.
Yes.
You look at our annual fund, which is a term I've never used before. We really have to raise $120,000 from donations. So that's not including grants. That's not including ticket sales. That's not including sponsorships, whether playbills or some of the smaller business sponsorships that we receive. That's just in individual donations. $120,000 next year that we need to fulfill our annual fund. Now that's done through end of year giving. We run a big campaign. That's done through some major gifts. We've got people who come on as executive producers. So that would be, if you're someone who wants to get more involved in the process and come to our read through and meet the cast and crew and come to a rehearsal, come to opening, come to closing, really see the process of how a production unfolds. That's reserved for those executive producers.
And they can get their name on.
They get their name on the poster. They get their name everywhere. Get your name everywhere, and you get to be really a part of the family that helps create the production.
What, just ballpark a number?
Looking for $15,000 next year per show.
Very reasonable.
It's not crazy, right? We're a small company. There's plenty of. So we got cut off. But it's only $15,000 to be an executive producer and get your name on everything and be a part of the whole process.
Amen. And tell a friend to come attend.
Yes.
Patronage. Donate.
Yes, A Streetcar Named Desire runs through August 4th. We've only got a couple hundred tickets left. It's probably going to sell out. So if you want to come see this, if you see this in the next couple days, there's tickets available still. So we encourage you to buy there. Go to newcityplayers.org. That's where you can buy tickets. You can make donations there. But we encourage everyone to come out. It's a classic play. People are really responding to it. We'd love to have you here.
And where can they follow you on social media and the interwebs?
Yeah, so New City Players, at New City Players, and then you can follow me at Timothy Mark Davis on Instagram. You can also go to my website, timothymarkdavis.com. You can sign up for my newsletter there, and that's a great way to connect. And as I offered to meet with anyone who wants to meet, it's a great place to find me, and maybe we can connect and create something together.
A couple current films out, a couple films soon to premiere.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
Yeah, so I worked on a short documentary with United Way. It was called The Cost. So that premiered a couple months ago. That is, it's a really cool project. It's really the story of one woman's life and her relationship with her brother, and understanding what the cost, the economic, psychological, and community cost of untreated addiction is in our community. And then the narrative film that is trying to get on the festival circuit right now is called Thank You Places. That is my first feature film. It's about a theater company trying to survive a pandemic.
Oh, it sounds like reality TV.
You have no idea.
Well, kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everything that you've done in support of the arts, in support of the community. If you're an artist and you'd like to join fellow artists, we host Choose954 Artist Potluck Quarterly. The next one is August the 10th at our Zero Empty Spaces Gulfstream Park location. Bring a dish, 4 or 5 or 6 people, not everybody eats everything. We sit around the table, we introduce ourselves, talk a little bit about our work. I have a prompt every month, and it's just a way to connect, another way to connect, engage, and inspire the creative community, make friends, get supporters. Sergio Gomez, who I mentioned, Art Next Level, he's going to do a free workshop for artists before that at 5 o'clock. So and the potluck's 5:30, generally goes to about 7:30 or 8. So that's a Choose954 Artist Potluck. Still doing our monthly breakfast lecture series, Mini TED Talk Creative Zen, every second Friday morning of the month, which Tim's going to speak at in the future one day to share his story. Yes. Another way to connect, engage, and inspire people. That's where I had my aha moment many years ago, which changed the course of my life, my world, and the community through that inspiration. So I pay it forward, and continue to host. That's in the Cotilla Gallery in the Alvin Sherman Library on the campus NSU. Free event, free parking, coffee, breakfast bites, community connection, all that good stuff. And if you really want to see some visual art and some performing arts, every third Saturday night of the month, I still lead a free tour of the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk, which is a great family-friendly event. I do free tours at 7 and 9 o'clock. There's a free magic show at 10 inside Cinema Paradiso. There's living sculpture artists, performing artists throughout the art walk, throughout the streets. So that's the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk. And the last one I would mention, if you're an artist and you're looking for more connection, mindfulness, clarity, peace of mind, wellness. We are just announced our first wellness retreat, Cruise for Creatives, taking place March 2nd through the 8th on Virgin Voyages, so no kids. Also runs parallel with my birthday. It's an extension of the potluck. We've had many great potlucks over the last 6 years, so we've built a nice community of creatives, and we want to take that out to the next level. So we're going to have workshops also partnering with our next level on mindfulness, going from burnout to balance, motivation.
And that's totally free, right?
That one you don't have to pay for, but we do have payment plans starting at $140 a month.
All right.
Which is pretty reasonable.
Yeah. I'll do that for the rest of my life for a great creative cruise.
Only have to pay until March.
Look at that.
If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm an open book. Evan Snow at EvanSnow13, at Choose954. I'd love to hear why you choose 954. Oh yeah, the last question we always like to ask. Why do you choose the 954?
Well, first of all, it chose me.
That's right.
Born and raised here. But I will also say, I think, really coming from the conversation we've had, there is so much opportunity here. It is fertile soil to create, to try new things. It is not from an artistic perspective, it is not a fixed culture.
Correct.
It's like, oh, you're trying to do this? Well, we don't do that here. It's kind of like, try it and see if it connects, see if you can find an audience. And I think that is something that is really special and exciting about the 954.
Love to hear what you want to try. Please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us. We're open books. We'd be glad to help. Appreciate you tuning in. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.